Alex, thank you so much for being here. World War II Recommendation Project is excited to have you on as a guest who I think you will be our first guest whose book is not actually set in World War II, but you do, of course, have a great tie back to a book about Green Beret. History traces back to the OSS and World War II. It all connects, and your book comes out this summer. Really excited, and a lot of people are really excited. This is a makeshift version of what will be the version you can buy in a bookstore near you or request from your library, Desert Heist. And Alex, just to tell everyone a little about you, you are a former Green Beret who spent more than 20 years in U.S. Special Forces, deployed around the world. And that all has helped inform the book that we're about to talk about, which is Desert Heist. It's a thriller. Tell us about it and what led you to write it.
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me. Happy to be here. And Desert Heist is kind of a classic action adventure, very much in the vein of an Indiana Jones style adventure with an archaeological historical mystery, but it ties in with some former special operators. So, one of the things that I love and have always been passionate about is history. I love history. I love reading about it, love researching it. Really, any historical period, whatever I can get my hands on. And so whenever I kind of had the idea to write a book, I knew I wanted to have those historical tie-ins and some kind of a historical mystery to solve, very much like a Dan Brown kind of novel. But what I know is special operations, having spent 20 years in the special forces. And so I essentially tied those two things together and created Desert Heist, which is a story about a Green Beret who gets out mid-career after kind of a catastrophic deployment and decides to pursue his other passion, which is history, and is attempting to earn his PhD in archaeology. And for his dissertation, is looking for this lost city in the Arabian desert. He sort of gets told by the examining committee that there's maybe not enough evidence to go off of, and he also has trouble getting a permit. And so he decides to do it anyway, and enlist a couple of his former special operations buddies, mostly Green Berets, and one who was a former British SAS guy that his team had worked with, to go with him, and they go searching for this lost city in the empty quarter of the Arabian desert.
And see the movie already. And I think, we talk about Indiana Jones. I think probably a lot of people don't know that Indiana Jones and the OSS have a tie-in. So I don't know if that's something you want to share and just how the history of American Special Forces, is baked into the book too.
Sure. So we find out, I think maybe in the last movie, and also through some of the expanded lore, that Indiana Jones was, I think, a colonel in the OSS during World War II. So he also, I think, served in World War One, which is a little bit trivia from the Young Indiana Jones series, I want to say. But yeah, there is a direct lineage from Army Special Forces to the OSS. So a lot of what you'll hear about the OSS is that they were the precursor of the CIA, and that's true. There was a gap and a little bit of a transition period as well. But whenever the OSS was disbanded, eventually what became of that was really kind of two parts. One was the intelligence aspect of things, and that went to the CIA, and the other was the unconventional warfare aspect of things. And when we talk about that, that's like the Jedburgh teams going in to occupied Europe and training and leading resistance forces to
Right.
sabotage, coerce, disrupt, overthrow the occupying powers there. And so, really,
That
those
guy.
core lessons. Sorry, no, that
That
guy
guy.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, those core lessons really, a lot of former OSS members then moved on into the special forces, like Aaron Bank, who's considered the father of special forces, of Army Special Forces, took those lessons and helped in 1952 when they created Army Special Forces to start building that capability out into what modern special forces and Green Berets are today.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I think, we think I read about the OSS all the time, and it's the forerunner to the CIA. You think of the Bill Donovan statue when you walk into Langley, but that element of Green Berets, Navy SEALs, Maritime Special Forces, all of these capabilities that are unconventional warfare evolved into special forces have lineage there too. So it all ties back, but back to bring it back to your book. What I really thought was neat about this book too is that it was something that you said you were between deployments, if I have this right, and you said, I don't have anything to do. I love history. I have a story idea. I'm gonna write this book, and simply, did so, and then had it sitting around for a while. And tell us about how that manuscript evolved into what is now Desert Heist.
Sure. So, as you mentioned, I sort of had a lull between combat deployments and not much to do, and so sitting around with time on my hands is not something that I do well with, and so I needed kind of a project. Um, as I mentioned, I always loved history, love studying history. I'm always reading something about history, and so I sort of had this idea to write a book, and I tied that in with my special operations knowledge. And I sat down, I wrote. It took me about 3 months or so to write the book, um,
That's very impressive,
and I
by the way,
enjoyed
for
doing it.
anybody who hasn't written a book before.
Well,
It's a
thank you,
very quick book.
thank you. Um, I had so much fun writing it, enjoyed it that it was kind of the opposite of writer's block. I didn't sit there thinking what to write. I had to pull myself away from it at 3 a.m. Because I was just having a good time with it. Then I had so much fun writing it that I wrote a second one, and then I kind of put them away and didn't look at them again until I met my now wife, who is a former CIA operations officer, so another legacy OSS tie-in. Um, and she read it and she said, "Hey, this is a pretty good book. I think you might have something here." And so I let a couple other buddies in the unit read it, and they liked it. And so I kind of looked at what the process is and wound up learning about query letters and sent out some query letters. Got a call back from my now agent who said, "I love it. Let's do it." And then about 7 or 8 months later, she called me actually on my honeymoon in Hawaii and said that Emily Bessler of Emily Bessler Books of Atria Simon and Schuster loved the book and wants to talk, and did a kind of an hour-long Zoom call with her from my hotel room in Hawaii, and signed with Simon and Schuster, and that's kind of the how all this thing came about.
Yeah, and there's so much excitement around it. Jack Carr, like a lot of these stories that we think of when we think of thrillers and what people are reading today. There's a ton of support for the book. What's your hope from people reading it and that they take away, they put it down after they're done?
So first off, I want them to have a good time. I think the best thing about reading a book is when it's enjoyable. Whenever you kind of forget that you're reading a book and you just get immersed in a story. And so that's the first takeaway I want. The second is that there is a lot of real history in here. Everything is very painstakingly researched.
Yeah.
I went to great lengths to make sure that every bit of evidence or every thread that the main character, Nate Wild, pulls on, if you're to pull on that same thread, go to Google and look it up. You'll see that it's real, it's factual, and it leads back to something that is real. And so, yeah, the second thing is that I hope people they have a good time. I also hope that they learn something. The third is that there's some underlying tones in the book. Nate Wild leaves the military after a disastrous deployment. He's dealing with some things. He's dealing with some pains of separation. He's dealing with finding his purpose. He's dealing with probably a little bit of PTSD, and he has no idea. It just is under the surface, boiling as he's trying to live his life and move on. And so he will navigate those things and find his way around them. And as is true with real life, it's difficult to do that alone. But whenever he kind of reunites with some of his buddies, that kind of eases the process and makes it more natural. So hopefully, people pick up on that as well and enjoy that aspect of it.
You're like, I wrote a factually, a true to history book that will entertain you and make you understand the world and be supportive of others in it. No small task. So really excited about it. You're reminding me a little bit of I recently heard Rye Barcott in conversation with Seth Moulton about Rye's new book called Courage Can Save Us, but it's also has these tones of people going through something and you come out of service and Seth's experience, you said you would be abnormal if you didn't have some PTSD. That would be, the anomaly. So I think that these stories are being told by people who have lived them in both nonfiction and realistic fiction contexts is really powerful, and a good bridge to the rest of us for understanding more this world that is hard to understand. I also want to say that it seems like the CIA is a great pipeline for publishing. As someone whose co-author is a former CIA historian and not a historian, and it sounds like your wife knew you had a good story, but also CIA lived experiences, special forces lived experiences make for good books. So I'm excited for this one. Everyone, Desert Heist. Alex is getting ready to take it on the road, and I hope you enjoy it. Alex, our last question is around another piece of, in this case, World War II media. Anything could be Indiana Jones, could be, a presidential biography from World War II era, could be a TV show or something completely different. What would you recommend to others, sort of loosely related to World War II media?
Sure. So you mentioned one thing about my wife, so that reminded me also just a fun bit of OSS trivia, which I'm obviously partial to the OSS. Since I was Army Special Forces for so many years, and my wife was in the CIA, we both tie our lineage back to OSS. So we have a German Shepherd named Donovan after Wild Bill Donovan of the OSS. So fun history fact there. Um, as
Is
far
he going to be
as
the star of your movie?
we'll see. As far as World War II books, so The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare by
Yeah.
Damian Lewis. I read that years ago and loved it. Kind of details out the special operations executive, and which was a lot of where that OSS came from.
Mhm.
And it's a fascinating read for it. First off, it's really well written and it reads like you're, almost reading an Ian Fleming or a spy novel.
Totally.
And it's fascinating that this is true stuff that happened. And it just goes to show what you can do with innovation and desperation and kind of unleashing your highly qualified and intelligent and creative people to go do what they need to do to, in this case, disrupt the Nazi or the Axis war machine. They made the movie about it with Henry Cavill and all those other guys in it, and that was also a very entertaining movie. Not necessarily completely, true to the book as a lot of movies aren't when you get that Hollywood hot sauce in there, but still a very entertaining movie that I think covers mostly the blowing up of ships in the West African ports, which is covered in the book if I remember correctly. But great book if you're looking for one that again will you'll learn something from, but is also massively entertaining.
That's a great rec, and I love Damian Lewis in general. And actually, you're reminding me. I one time wrote an article about the CIA gift shop, and they have a CIA hot sauce there. So you mentioned
Yes, they do.
Hollywood sauce. There's also CIA hot sauce and onesies that say product of two secret operations or something, or of a secret
Product of a
operation.
clandestine operation. I may or may not
Yeah.
have that onesie.
I will not hold you to fact checking it. Alex, thank you so much. It's great to chat with you. I hope to meet Donovan, named after Wild Bill, one day. And for now, I'm excited to recommend Desert Heist to everyone.